Welcome back to the Upside Sports Network. My name is Michael. Appreciate you guys joining us on a great day if you're a Texas Rangers fan. Jacob DeGrom signs with the Rangers, 5 years, $185 million with a 6-year conditional option as well. What a great deal for Texas. Only $37 million in average annual value. A whole lot cheaper than what the industry was expecting. We were all expecting a contract well north of $40 million, approaching possibly the Max Scherzer deal. The Rangers get it done because they go the extra year and give the conditional 6th year as well. What a great deal for them. Plus, we just saw the breakdown of the contract from 32 EFIS on Twitter anyway. That's Levi Weaver, in case you guys are wondering, a guy who follows the Rangers exclusively for The Athletic. We will go through the entire contract. But first, want to say hello to a couple people who have already entered the chat. Welcome back, Cody. Welcome back, Bush Girl. Saw your comment earlier on one of our other videos that we just did. Really appreciate all the support. We're back over 970 subscribers right now, getting really close to that 1,000. Let's see how close we can get tonight. First and foremost, Jacob DeGrom, what exactly does this signing mean for the Texas Rangers? What exactly does it mean for the New York Mets? As you guys know, I'm a big Rangers fan living here in Texas, so we'll start on the Rangers side of it. First and foremost, they had to address their starting staff, and they have. They've made 3 starting pitcher adjustments anyway since last year. First, they bring in Jake Odorizzi, getting Atlanta to eat $10 million of the contract, and he only cost them $2.5 million. Then they get the qualifying offer for Martin Perez after he took a big leap in his career last year. We'll see if he's able to duplicate it, and then when he hits free agency next year, we'll see if what kind of a contract he gets. It sounds like he's wanting to take the Carlos Rodon route, so we'll see what kind of numbers end up coming in. Last piece here, so far anyway, the last piece right now is Jacob DeGrom. The reason why I say the last piece right now is because they could still add another $30+ million in payroll to next year's roster. That could include a guy like Verlander, a Rodon, that could be a Senga, that could be a Haniger, that could be a Jansen. They could go a number of different ways to round out this roster because they still have money to burn. They've saved money for years. They knocked that payroll all the way down to in the $20 million range as far as actual players on the roster 2 years ago anyway, and then spent a boatload of money last year with Corey Seager, Marcus Semien, John Gray. Now they go out there and get Jacob DeGrom. Now what exactly does this move specifically do? What does he bring to the team? First and foremost, he gives them an ace at the head of that rotation. Say they don't spend another dime the rest of this offseason. They already have addressed their pitching staff. They could go with their starting five as it is right now and be considerably better than what they were last year. But that's not where they're going to stop. They're going to continue to add pieces. Jacob DeGrom gives them immediate respectability of their starting rotation, something they have not had for years. That has been the one big issue on this team, and now it seems like they have a legitimate starting staff. Now, as far as Jacob DeGrom, of course, everybody wants to point out the injury issues. He hasn't pitched a whole lot of innings the last 3 years, but you got to remember one of those years was a COVID year. And then, of course, yes, the last 2 years have certainly been injury prone. But when he is on the mound, he is still pound for pound the best pitcher in the entire major leagues right now. 14 plus strikeouts per nine. Walks are around 1.1 walks per nine. The best differential in the league by far. He is fantastic. The second best pitcher in the entire league, at least last year, was Justin Verlander in those same categories. We'll see what kind of numbers he ends up getting. He is 39 years old. DeGrom, however, is 34. That's why this 5-year commitment would only take him to his age 39 season. By the way, that's the age that Justin Verlander is right now. Great addition by the Texas Rangers. Now, what exactly does this mean for the New York Mets? Welcome in, Mark. Appreciate it. The Mets, of course, lose on their big fish to try to bring back Jacob DeGrom. I told you guys the Mets were they were trying to get things done very quickly this offseason, just like they did last year. They were trying to bring back a number of different players. First, they got Edwin Diaz done, but they, of course, wanted to bring back DeGrom. They wanted to bring back Nimmo, and then, of course, add to that team, which couldn't get out of the wild card round last year. And DeGrom was fantastic in that round, but nobody else really was for the Mets. They couldn't really get anything else going. Scherzer blew up in Game 1, and, of course, Game 3, we saw how that went. But, of course, the Mets still have a lot of money to spend. Cohen has been willing to go out there and spend whatever he needs to. I still expect them to get one of the top free agent starters out there on the board to replace DeGrom in that lineup, but they are short 3 starters right now. And the reports are out there that Jacob DeGrom didn't exactly give them another chance to, match the offer of the Texas Rangers. Well, it sounds a little bit more like Jacob DeGrom had already given them that opportunity and was so far down the road with the Texas Rangers, there was no point in going back to the New York Mets and saying, hey, do you guys want to match this offer? Sounds like he wanted to be in Texas. After a certain point, the Mets just weren't really willing to go that high. We'll see what kind of news comes out, especially as the press conferences get going for the winter meetings in a couple of days. Should be fantastic. Front page and back page stories anyway coming out of the New York media. You might want to subscribe to some of those websites out there and find out what exactly is going on, but it's going to be juicy. For the Mets, of course, they still have to add to that rotation. Let's say they get a Verlander or a Rodon, one of those two pieces. They still have to bring back a guy like Taijuan Walker or Bassett, and then they can really try to add to that team. I expect them to try to pursue a third baseman, a designated hitter, maybe a catcher. But the Mets have a lot more questions they do right now than they did 2 hours ago. Mets are going to have to figure out what they want to do to solve those issues, but we'll see which direction they go. Let us know in the comment section what you think of the signing, what you think of the contract, and did the Texas Rangers really give too much? It is only $37 million in average annual value, and he's only 34 years old. If he's able to stay healthy, big if, of course, if he's able to stay healthy, that's a ridiculously low-value contract from what it could have been if he had gotten top dollar off of the market and gone on a shorter-term deal like a Max Scherzer did last offseason. Great deal for the Texas Rangers. Welcome in, Jose. Glad DeGrom is out of the NL East. Yeah, as a Phillies fan, anybody else, or if you're a Braves fan, Phillies fan, anybody else besides the Mets, I'm pretty sure you're happy he is gone to the American League West. AL West has gotten very interesting. The Mariners gone out there and made some significant movement. We saw the trade today. Colton Wong going to the Mariners in exchange for Jesse Winker. And I want to say Abraham Toro was the other piece in that deal. Good major league level talent going back to Milwaukee. See if they can get those players to kind of grasp their former prospect status for Abraham Toro and elite level of play for Jesse Winker. Now for the Mariners, of course, this solves their second base role. Means they're pretty much out on the guys that are shortstops this year. Carlos Correa, Dansby Swanson, Xander Bogaerts, Trey Turner. That's not going to happen. Looks like the Mariners have solved that issue. They've also freed up that roster spot anyway for another outfielder, another corner outfielder. It sounds like Michael Conforto is going to be the guy there. But Mets fans are absolutely losing it, and you are absolutely correct. If you guys have been paying any attention to talk radio tonight, I was listening to it on the drive home after putting out that quick video that I did to let you guys know that DeGrom was signing with the Texas Rangers. If you guys paid any attention on the radio, Fox Sports Radio, ESPN Radio, wherever you listen, you would have heard Mets fans everywhere basically screaming into their pillows because they didn't just see this happening. They thought that at least the Mets would have another chance to bring him in, and they thought Cohen would be able to outspend any team in Major League Baseball. That didn't happen, and Mets fans everywhere are feeling it. Again, I'm a Rangers fan. Down here, I'm absolutely ecstatic, exuberant. Couldn't say enough of how happy I am to see them finally get an ace-level pitcher. I saw some comparisons on MLB Network just before I came on the air with you guys, that they're comparing this addition to bringing in Nolan Ryan at the end of his career as far as an impact level of pitcher going to Texas. I'm not sure that level of comparison is accurate quite yet, but it very well could be. A lot of pitchers in the back end of their careers, I think of guys like Kenny Rogers, Nolan Ryan, of course. There's been a lot of aging veteran pitchers come into the Texas Rangers. We'll see what kind of impact DeGrom has. DeGrom, for me, is on a different planet altogether. Not saying he's better than Nolan Ryan or that acquisition. I just think it's a very different type of pitcher being brought in. We'll see if he's able to have similar success to Nolan. If he does, Rangers certainly got something in this deal. And if he stays healthy, fantastic news. Now we'll see if the one other news for the Mets, of course, they're going to try to bring in another starter. Will they be able to retain Brendan Nimmo? That market is expected to take a little bit of time to develop. A lot of big pocketbooks are out there to try to bring him in. Mariners are said to be interested. Blue Jays, Giants. I imagine the Yankees would be if they lose Judge. Now that we've seen DeGrom leave his own team and go to a new destination like the Texas Rangers, I wonder if it makes the decision a little bit easier for Aaron Judge to not think, well, what will the fan base think if I don't go back to New York? Well, they've already got one guy not going back to New York. Now it might not impact him quite as much. Aaron Judge, of course, is everything for the Yankees this offseason. If he's 50-50, anything that helps tip the balance in the Giants' favor right now, I think they're absolutely all for. And that could be one more argument or one more thing in the favor of the Giants. This could affect that market a teeny bit. I'm not saying it'll be the reason or even one of the reasons he lists as why he goes to the Giants. It just might make the decision that he wants to make a little bit easier. But the Padres did meet with Turner. I still don't expect Turner to go anywhere except for Philadelphia. Sorry, Cobra. I know you're a Padres fan. I think you're setting yourself up for failure if you think that you're going to get him. It could very well be to drive up the price, much like the Boston Red Sox are supposedly in it for Xander Bogaerts. But thank you guys for joining us. Got over 972 of you guys subscribed right now. If you guys want to hit that subscribe button, we'd really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. If you've already hit that subscribe button, we're really close to 1,000. Let's see if we can get there before the winter meetings begin on Sunday. Again, we will be live for you guys every single day from the winter meetings, bring you every single transaction that we possibly can, break down every single signing, every single trade, let you know who won, lost the trade, what the pieces were moving, what the contract terms are, what the lineup's going to look like, what the rotation's going to look like, if this impacts their playoff chances, if this takes them out of playoff contention. If you're the Mets, I don't think this takes them out of playoff contention. I just think this takes them out of being one of the favorites in the National League. Unless they make another big addition on that pitching staff, they've certainly taken a step back from where they were last year. And of course, they crumbled down the stretch. Remember, Atlanta had an unbelievable run in the second half of last year. Just absolutely tore the barn doors off of everything. They were fantastic pretty much from June on, and they overtook the Mets, of course, with the final couple weeks of the season. And then, of course, the Mets flamed out in the postseason as well. Scherzer got blown out, gave up 7 runs in a game. Hadn't given up 7 runs in any game this season. I don't think he'd even given up 7 runs in a month. In a season, or in last season anyway, before that game, and just things just fell apart. Their bats, of course, went quiet in September, and again that showed in that series against the Padres. One game they showed up, and that was the game DeGrom started, by the way. So again, the Rangers add Jacob DeGrom. They're not expected to be done. We were told at the beginning of the offseason, or I take that back. We were told at the end of last offseason, before the season even began, after they signed Seager and Simeon and Gray and Calhoun, that they were going to still add significant payroll this season. They were going to add between 60 and 75 million off of what the salary was last year. So we'll see what kind of moves they make. They saved a little bit by cutting Cole Calhoun. Of course, they bring back Martin Perez. Altogether, anyway, they've added about 15 to 17 million before the Jacob DeGrom signing. Now Jacob DeGrom is $30 million in the first year of his deal. Gets, I believe, 38 million in years 2 and 3 of the deal. 30, I can't remember the exact number, but we'll pull it up here in just a moment for you guys. See if I can pull up the numbers. Boom, boom, boom. There it is. So they're saying it's going to be $30 million in the first year of the deal, close to $40 million in years 2 and 3, and around 38 and 37 in years 4 and 5. 6-year contract term still seems a little. There still remains a lot of questions about what that's going to end up being, but it sounds like the total value of this deal could ultimately reach $220 million if that option is picked up. Next, Mets are going to let go Bassett and Nimmo. I'm not sure they're going to be able to let go of either one of those players. I think losing Jacob DeGrom frees up considerable payroll for both of those players to return to the Mets. They need to improve that offense. Nimmo is the best center field option they have this year. This is absolutely fantastic for the Rangers, though. They get the man. They get their ace. This is exactly what they needed to kick off their free agency period. Remember last year, the signing that they made first was Marcus Simeon. $175 million over 7 years. That gave them some legitimacy to then go to Corey Seager and say, hey, we're building something right now. And so they got Corey Seager, 10 years, $325 million. Immediately right after that, 4 years, $56 million for John Gray. This offseason, they make the move to bring in Bruce Bochy. They make the move to send out John Daniels during the season. Chris Young's kind of taken over the entire front office right now. They bring in Dayton Moore as well, pitching coach. Mike Maddox, a veteran pitching coach, which they haven't had since Mike Maddox was there. And of course, the Rangers had their best success on their pitching staff when he was there. Great coaching staff right now. And that's part of the argument, I think, convinced Jacob DeGrom to come. Of course, the money is very helpful. Don't get me wrong. That's probably the biggest reason why he's in Texas, and that 5th year guaranteed, of course. But having Bruce Bochy as your manager is absolutely a good thing, especially when you're trying to court free agents. I expect them to be in the market for yet another top-end starting pitcher. I'm not talking about the Wade Miley's, Drew Smiley market anyway. I'm talking about top-end rotation starters. Senga, Rodon, those type of pieces. I don't think maybe Verlander might be a little bit too high for their price range just because I think the Dodgers seem like the team most interested in bringing him in. Mets have a glaring need in their rotation right now, and I think they would be outbid if they tried to go for Justin Verlander. It might get over $40 million for him. DeGrom is a little bit cheaper because of that 5th year guarantee. The Rangers did well by getting that done. If he does succumb to those injuries, hey, the Rangers knew what they were getting into when they signed this contract. And so I think the Rangers are open to every single possibility of this. But still, when he's healthy, DeGrom has not shown any wear down in his stuff. His stuff looks fantastic. It still looks like DeGrom is one of the most, if not the most effective pitcher on the planet right now when he's healthy. And if he stays healthy, if he gives you 120 to 150 innings a year, maybe even 200. I don't think we'll see 200 innings from DeGrom with Texas. I think they'll try to piecemeal that rotation together, maybe give him a start off every couple months or so just to kind of preserve his arm for the postseason should they get there. But I think if you could get 120 to 150 innings out of him every single year, Rangers would sign up for that right now. They absolutely needed an ace at the at the head of this rotation, and they got it done. Let us know in the comment section what you think of DeGrom leaving the Mets and going to the Rangers. What a fantastic addition! I can't say enough about the Texas Rangers front office. What a job they have done over the past 12 and a half months, bringing in Seager, Simeon, Gray, Perez back on a qualifying offer. Now they bring in Jacob DeGrom. What's next for this front office? They seem to be going off right now. Every single thing they're pulling up is coming up roses. They get a amazing manager in Bruce Bochy to come out of retirement. Hadn't coached in 3 years, but he's still one of the best managers in the entire sport. They bring in possibly one of the best pitching coaches in the sport right now as well, in Mike Maddox. That's how highly Mike Maddox is viewed in the industry. I think he's even better than that. For me, Mike Maddox did wonders with the Texas Rangers rotation the first time he was in Texas, but the Rangers just have it all going right now. Let us know in the comment section what you think. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't hit it already. We'll keep you guys updated on the rest of the MLB Hot Stove. Whenever the winter meetings come around, we will be live for you guys pretty much throughout the winter meetings. We'll start 6 p.m. on Sunday, so make sure you hit that subscribe button and the like button. We'd really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Let's go ahead and just kind of break down a little bit more of what this means for the Rangers outside of the addition of Jacob DeGrom. What does this mean for their next step? We've talked a little bit about their need for a rotation help. Now we need to address other needs in the organization. They could look to left field. Pretty great, Cheesy. Welcome back. But they need to address left field. Where was Mike Maddox last year? In case you guys are wondering, he was on that St. Louis Cardinals staff. He was fantastic there, kind of unlocked Jordan Montgomery. The second he got to St. Louis, he instantly got better because he trusted what his pitcher was telling him. And of course, we saw him use his pitching or his pitch sequencing a lot differently than we had in New York. You saw the success there. Now he goes to the Texas Rangers, and we'll see how he does in his second go-round with the Rangers. Really appreciate you guys joining us. Thank you guys so much. Got about 21 of you guys with us right now. So thank you guys for joining us right now. In case you guys are new to the Upside, we cover the MLB, the NBA, the NFL, and the NHL. So just kind of getting started here with the Jacob DeGrom news. But as I was trying to say, the Rangers are not going to be done. We've addressed a little bit about what they could do with their starting staff. Left field is another option that they're going to have to address. They're interested in bringing in Mitch Haniger. It sounds like the Rangers and the Red Sox are most heavily interested in bringing him in. When Haniger is right, which again is an issue because he has health risks. We just saw the Rangers take a risk here by bringing in Jacob DeGrom because, again, the health risk there. If they're willing to double down on health of these two players, the Rangers could really have something going. Because in 2021, Haniger finished, I believe, 20th in MVP voting, 39 home runs, 100 RBIs last year, or in 21. Last year was on a similar track record, but only played in 57 games. So again, if he's able to stay healthy, the Rangers could really have something there. We'll see which way they end up going. Welcome in, Explosives. Really appreciate you joining us. You think the Rangers are still behind with DeGrom? Need more pieces? I believe so as well. The Mariners have a 1 through 4 rotation that I really trust. They have a number 5 in either Flexen or Gonzalez. They could round out their lineup as well by bringing in a guy like Nimmo or Conforto. I still think they need to add possibly one more starter, but they're going to add a left fielder. Rangers had league worst production out of left field last year. They could use a closer as well. But again, they have another $30+ million after signing DeGrom that they're going to invest this offseason. So hold your horses, everybody. The winter meetings aren't even here yet, and here we are 2 days before, and fireworks from the Rangers. 5 years, $185 million for DeGrom. Dennis Lynn reporting to your point, Cobra, that they've had 2 in-person meetings with Trey Turner. I wonder how high they're willing to go on that contract because they're going to have to overpay, I think, to outbid the Philadelphia Phillies. But it does appear that they have legitimate interest in him. They've already talked about bringing in Xander Bogaerts as well. Wow. Okay, this little bit more news out of the New York media. Joel Sherman tweeting about 7 minutes ago. The Mets' offer to DeGrom was 3 years and 120 million. The sides were still in contact, but there was really no back and forth today. They were in contact yesterday. There was no if you can top this bidding. The Mets got word from the DeGrom camp not that much before the world found out that he was going to the Rangers. So he did at least inform the Mets that they were going elsewhere. The Mets weren't even willing to offer a fourth year. That's part of the reason why DeGrom didn't even go back to the Mets at that point. If you're not willing to go 4, why would I believe you're going to go 5 at that point? I mean, clearly you can see the Rangers were by far the most aggressive suitor for him. And for the Rangers, outbidding the Mets by a full 2 years. They were willing to do it. They paid a little bit less in average annual value because of their willingness to do so. Mets, of course, 120 million over 3. You guys can do that math easily. Welcome, Ben Zach. Appreciate you joining us. But easy math there. 120 over 3 years anyway. $120 million divided by 3. That's $40 million in average annual value was the Mets offer. So we'll see how things go there. But it looks like the Mets are really going to have to regroup and figure out how they're going to go after starting pitching. I wonder if they're underbidding and not taking their position quite as seriously as I think they should have. It seems like they're reluctant to go years. They might be willing to go a little bit higher AAV is what it sounds like, but not necessarily give the years. And that seems to be what was more influential to bringing in a guy like Jacob deGrom. Padres meeting with Xander and Correa tomorrow, you believe? Well, that would be a good thing. Again, another indication of what the Padres are willing to do to try to improve that team. And I put out a video probably the beginning of this week how there was a dark horse trade candidate in Fernando Tatis Jr. They're likely to move him to the outfield if they bring in another shortstop. That absolutely means Fernando Tatis Jr. would end up in the outfield. Are they really willing to pay Fernando Tatis Jr. to play an outfield position when he's brought up as an impact player at short? Tells me that there might be some trouble brewing there with Fernando Tatis Jr. They still, of course, have to bring in, or they have to get the contract extension done for Juan Soto. Bryce, welcome back. Congratulations, huge signing for your team, and it could look like a steal in a couple years if DeGrom is healthy. Great signing by the head of operations for Rangers. Yes, Chris Young has done fantastic work for the Rangers. In less than about 12 months, well, I'll take that back. In about 12 months and 5 days, Chris Young has brought in more talent than almost any other general manager in Rangers history. Just look at his track record. He brings in Marcus Semien. He brings in Corey Seager. He brings in John Gray. He brings in Martin Perez, gets the qualifying offer done this year to keep him in Texas anyway. Now he gets the big fish, the big pitcher in Jacob deGrom, and he's still not done. Welcome in, Haya. It has been a while. It's been probably at least a month or two, I think, now. But welcome back. If you guys are new to the Upside, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We'd really appreciate it. Getting very close to 1,000 subscribers. Let's see if we can get there before the winter meetings begin on Sunday. But feel free to send us your comment. What you think about the signing of the Rangers, getting him for 5 years and $185 million. I'm right there with you, Bryce. I think they're going to get another pitcher. I think if they want to spread their money around a little bit, they could bring in a guy like Senga, maybe give him $15 to $17 million a year. Haniger, they could probably give another 15 plus a year to. That's about $30 million right there. And if they still want to polish it off and bring in a closer at the back end of their bullpen, I'm not sure what other holes they have. I mean, they already have the rotation pretty much set as it is right now with one young guy in the staff and Jake Odorizzi pitching in your 4 and 5 spot. Of course, their 1 is Jacob deGrom, their 2 is Perez, their 3 is Gray. Then they have Dane Dunning and Jake Odorizzi with a plethora of young guys behind them. Not to mention all the trade chips they now have from all the stockpiling they've done to prospects. We put out a video just the other day about the Rangers getting significant interest in 2 of their prospects in Ezekiel Duran and Josh Smith, 2 of the pieces they got in the Joey Gallo deal a year and a half ago. Now, both didn't have great first years in the majors, but they both have fantastic prospect potentials. First and foremost, Ezekiel Duran, power hitting, second baseman, third baseman, maybe even put him in the corner outfield spot. He looks to have a bright future ahead of him. Josh Smith, more of a contact hitter, probably be able to fit anywhere in your infield defensively, maybe even a spot start or 2 out and left, but still has some significant prospect upside to him. Dane Dunning, we mentioned, could be at the back end of the rotation if they put him in the trade for, say, a Brandon Woodruff from the Milwaukee Brewers. That would be something I could see the Rangers doing. Or maybe going after a Corbin Burns. They might not have enough to get Burns, but they certainly have enough to get a guy like Brandon Woodruff. Thoughts on Carlos Santana? We put out a lot, or we talked about that quite a bit the last two nights. Carlos Santana, first baseman. You guys might remember him from the Guardians, the Mariners, and I believe he was. Where did he end up last year? I can't remember off the top of my head. Anyway, good veteran, been around a lot of winning teams in the past. Signed a 1 year, $6.725 million deal to go play for the Pittsburgh Pirates. They're looking to bring in Kyle Gibson as well on the pitching side. They have a lot of good young talent that's about ready to hit the majors as well. So getting those players in there to shepherd them through, good thing for them. Imagine Kenley Jansen to the Rangers might be a good signing. Absolutely. Kenley Jansen did have a little bit of a step back last year with the Atlanta Braves. They brought in Raisel Iglesias. They didn't need to bring back Kenley Jansen. They already had their closer spot pretty much wrapped up, and they're trying to save money to keep Dansby Swanson. We'll see if they're able to. But Kenley Jansen is the odd man out there in Atlanta. Be curious to see where he ends up going. The Giants have been connected to him multiple times so far this offseason. If they do get Judge or if they don't, I still expect them to be a player for Kenley Jansen. But the Rangers could round this thing out by bringing in Kenley Jansen. Yes, Gaylord Perry did pass away. Great all-around guy, even off the field, just kind of a gentleman's gentleman, if you will. Brewers have told teams they aren't parting with Burns or Woodruff. Bummer. Yeah, I'd take that with a grain of salt. I mean, they have three high-profile pieces that are going to hit free agency in 2024. We've talked about them as well. Willie Adames, Brandon Woodruff, and Corbin Burns. They're not going to be able to sign all three. They're a low-payroll team. They have a ton of money already committed to Christian Yelich. I expect them to try to retain two out of the three, and I think they're going to try to keep both of the pitchers. I think the man you could try to pry away is Willie Adames, but if you're willing to give the prospects away that you are going to have to for a guy like Burns or Woodruff, then maybe you could get something going, especially if you're willing to give up some premium assets, like say the Rangers give up Dunning, Duran, Smith, and maybe another starting or minor league starting pitcher. That could really get the ball going on a trade for Corbin Burns. That might be a little bit too much, honestly, for Brandon Woodruff. Pirates are reportedly listening to offers on Brian Reynolds, but it's unlikely to be dealt this offseason per John Heyman. Again, I just think that you could give them a very good offer to the Pirates for Brian Reynolds. I just don't think the Pirates are ever going to pull the trigger on it. I think you could give them exactly what they want in a trade, and they're still not going to pull the trigger because I think they want to keep him there to get to their next cycle of winning. Last season, high interest from Marlins and Yankees for Reynolds. Yeah. There's been a lot of interest in Reynolds for at least the last 3 years now as far as the offseason, the trade deadline. His name has always come up. But again, I just don't see Pittsburgh doing it. Who do you think will sign Verlander? Well, if you believe reports out there, I believe that the Justin Verlander's market really comes down to a 2, maybe a 3 team race. Comes down to the Giants, the Mets, and the Dodgers. Now, if the Yankees lose Aaron Judge, then I think they could be right in there for Justin Verlander as a way to kind of auto-correct themselves. They've already spoken with the Verlander camp as well, but I think the Mets are probably the most serious suitor along with the Dodgers right now. Dodgers have long been viewed as the favorite to bring him in. I think Verlander's price, I don't think it went up. I think the AAV of being $37 million and the length is more of what this deal was for DeGrom could impact Verlander. So instead of giving Verlander, say, $42 million for 2 years, this might get him to $41 million over 3 years with whichever team he ends up going to. But Verlander won the AL Cy Young last year, 1.85 ERA. Finally got the World Series bugaboo off his back. Performed well in the World Series. In Game 2, I believe, is the game he started. And we'll see how his next stop goes. But it sounds like the Verlander camp and the Astros are very far apart in their talks, and it doesn't sound like he's going back there. Same thing for Xander Bogaerts. It sounds like more of a courtesy to both player and team to just keep mentioning them as still in the running for Xander Bogaerts there. But again, if you guys are just joining us, Jacob DeGrom signs a 5-year, $185 million contract to sign with the Texas Rangers. Not the New York Mets, the Texas Rangers. He also got a conditional 6th year out of it, which could raise the total value to $222 million. The average annual value of $37 million, less than what was expected on the market, but the total length of the deal, full guarantee of 5 years, is what gets the deal done for Texas. The Mets' best offer was 3 years at $120 million. You can kind of see why DeGrom's camp didn't really come back to the Mets because they weren't even willing to go 4 years at that point. Tells you all you need to know about where DeGrom's market really was this entire time. They kept putting out positive information out there, saying, yeah, we really think we have a strong chance to sign Jacob DeGrom. Well, yeah, because you had a higher AAV. But again, 2 more guaranteed years on the deal. That's a lot more guaranteed money going to Jacob DeGrom in the Texas Rangers offer than he would have gotten in the New York Mets. A full, what, 50 or $65 million more guaranteed. That's a big difference, especially when you're talking about Jacob DeGrom, who has a ton of injury issues in the past. We'll see if he stays healthy for the Rangers. If he does, what a steal. And the no trade clause. That's another big thing. I imagine if he wants to get traded at some point, he could easily negotiate that with the Rangers. Rangers have been very open with the players that they're bringing in over the past couple of years. A big change in the way they're conducting business with Chris Young being at the helm than John Daniels. Would you think that Josh Bell signing with St. Louis is a possibility? No. Josh Bell is going to want to play every single day or close to it. They have Paul Goldschmidt there. He's not going to be able to do that unless he plays at the DH spot. I could see a guy like Brandon Belt going to the St. Louis Cardinals. Do you think that drives the price up for Verlander and Rodon? Rodon, absolutely. Talking about the 5 years guaranteed, we might be talking about Rodon getting a 6th guaranteed year out of his contract, probably in the neighborhood of 32 to 35 million at this point. That's how big of a contract we could see out of Rodon. For Verlander. For Verlander, we could see a contract in the neighborhood of 3 years at 40 to 41 million dollars total. But welcome back, Robert. Appreciate you joining us. Again, if you guys are just joining us, hit that subscribe button. It really does help us out. Really appreciate all the support we've gained over the past few weeks. Getting really, really, really close to 1,000 subscribers. I would love to see us get there before the winter meetings begin on Sunday. Again, if you guys are new here to the Upside, we cover the MLB, NBA, NFL, and the NHL. We'll be live for you guys on Sunday evening when the winter meetings begin. We'll be live at 6 p.m. Central. We will have the Hall of Fame announcement that evening from the contemporary ballot anyway, the Era Committee. We'll see who ends up getting in. It sounds like we might get Fred McGriff. Seems like the most likely to go in, possibly a Kurt Schilling. We'll see if any of the others like Bonds or Clemens get in. If you guys want to check out those arguments from the past couple of nights, you can check out our videos before on our daily updates that we've been doing for you guys all week long. And the rest of this offseason, we'll keep you guys updated throughout the offseason of what's going on in Major League Baseball. Tomorrow night, we will do a live for you guys. If you guys want to follow or drop us a like and subscribe. Let us know which game you'd like us to cover tomorrow evening, basketball or hockey. Again, I do get off of work around 5, 6 o'clock, so put the game probably around 7, 8 o'clock. Pick one of those games. If you guys don't pick, I'll let you guys know on Twitter which game we're going to end up doing, and you guys can follow along. Join us for our live chat during that game. But really appreciate you guys joining us. We're, 30 minutes in here to the live. Got 20 people in here right now. Really appreciate it. If you haven't hit that like button already, please do so. Thank you guys very much. But let's kind of get into some of the other headlines from around Major League Baseball. We'll start here at the top anyway. Of course, Jacob DeGrom going to the Texas Rangers is essentially what we're talking about right now. He is kind of dominating the news cycle. Again, the Rangers are not expected to be done. Where do you think the Rangers are going to spend the rest of their money? I still think they're going to add another starter at some point, and we could see a trade of one of their younger starting pitchers out. That would look bad, letting Bonds into the Hall of Fame. I don't know if that's a bad look for baseball, honestly. I mean, every single year we talk about Bonds and Clemens. Will they get into the Hall of Fame? I think that does more of a disservice to Major League Baseball than not letting him in does. Why? Because it moves the issue to the back page. We're not talking about Bonds and Clemens getting in. We're talking about Bonds and Clemens finally getting in, acknowledging of the issues that were around Major League Baseball at the time. Bonds and Clemens were rewarded most handsomely for it at the time. And while it is certainly an honor to go in the Hall of Fame, it certainly does a disservice to keep them out, because every single year, instead of talking about the players who are already in the Hall of Fame, players who are coming up on the ballot, instead of talking about the new induction and just giving them all their due, every single time we talk about the Hall of Fame, there's always the conversation of, yeah, but what about Pete Rose? Yeah, but what about Roger Clemens? Yeah, but what about Alex Rodriguez and Barry Bonds and all these other players? I'm sorry, those issues need to be resolved, and baseball needs to turn the page on those things. We'll see if they do so, but Fred McGriff, I think, should certainly get into the Hall of Fame, and I think they should just turn the page on the Bonds and Clemens part, let them in, let them have their day in the sun, etc., etc. But again, whether it's an asterisk next to their name in the record book, whether it be a placard right next to their, or right next to their plaque on the Hall of Fame wall, explaining the dark era of baseball and what not to do, they need to do something to correct that. But thank you, whoever just hit that subscribe button. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Bonds cheated, was a jerk overall, and overall doesn't deserve to enter the Hall of Fame. Well, there's a lot of people who would say up until the summer of love, if you will, between McGwire and Sosa. He was a Hall of Fame player at that point in his career, and whether or not you believe he was right or wrong in doing what he did, whether or not you think he did everything, or whether or not you think he was innocent, I think it's a major disservice to Major League Baseball to continue to talk about two of the biggest controversies in their sport, Bonds and Clemens, and not about all the other successful things that are going on in Major League Baseball. That's why this story just needs to end. And look at this comments just here from Yahaya. Just having this conversation about it every single year, every single time they're going to be on the era committee's ballot yet again, it does a complete disservice to the entire game. That's why I think they need to move forward. But again, just in case you guys have missed the news, Jacob DeGrom signs with the Rangers, 5 years, $185 million. That was not the only big announcement today, though. The Red Sox brought in another relief pitcher, bringing in former Ranger Chris Martin, anyway, on a 2-year, I believe it was $17.5 million deal. Adds another bullpen arm back there. They already added Joely Rodriguez from the Mets already this offseason, so it looks like they're trying to build up that bullpen. Mariners, we just touched on them. Bringing in Colton Wong solves their second base position, likely takes them out of the market for guys like Carlos Correa, Xander Bogaerts, Dansby Swanson, those type of players, Trey Turner. But that's kind of your moves right now. And, of course, Jason Castro announced his retirement, the catcher anyway. But those are your moves as of right now. We are less than 48 hours away from the beginning of the winter meetings. So we'll see what other big stories we have. Remember, at the second half of Saturday anyway, and then the morning on Sunday, we will not see a whole lot of transactions just because, again, teams are traveling out to the West Coast to San Diego for the winter meetings. So remember, if we're going to see any transactions, we might see them later on this evening or tomorrow morning. So keep your Twitter feed open. Hit that subscribe button. Make sure you subscribe to us here on YouTube at the Upside Sports Network. We'll keep you guys updated. And you can even follow us on Twitter at UpsideSN. We'll let you know when we go live. Any short videos we put out there about DeGrom, we will post there as well for you guys. Thank you guys for joining us. Phillies made a minor league signing today. Yeah, I saw a couple of other minor league signings as well. There's the Giants adding one. Another waiver claim. Jason Castro announcing his retirement. Another waiver claim. More waiver claims. There's the Chris Martin announcement. $17.5 million. As long as he is healthy, which is a big if for Chris Martin, he is a very effective eighth-inning pitcher. Think of him as a very similar pitcher to Adam Ottavino, except Martin certainly has more injury issues with him. Because he's a taller pitcher, he gets a lot of back issues, and that's what's kept him out over the last few years at certain points of his career. We'll see if he's able to stay healthy. He is 37 years old, but we'll see how he continues to progress with the Red Sox. If Josh Bell isn't a good fit for St. Louis, who do you see him joining? Honestly, I probably think the Giants are going to probably have some money to spend at first base this offseason. I think he could go there. Probably the most logical fit. And there's, of course, the San Diego Padres have a hole at first base, a big hole. Now, Josh Bell didn't exactly work there. That's why I think they're willing to bring in one of these top shortstops. That's why they're talking to Correa and Bogaerts and Turner. Just because I think they want to solve that infield spot. Now, they could move Kim over to first base. He has played a little bit there. They could go for another free agent out there as well. But Josh Bell, I think, could be ticketed for this for the San Francisco Giants. Now, of course, there's a lot of DH spots that he could go to as well. We'll see where he ends up going, but I don't think the Cardinals are a good fit just because I think he wants to play more first base than anything else. So if I had to pick a team right now, I would say the San Francisco Giants. One move by the Baltimore Orioles is they brought in former Red Sox Franchy Cordero. You might remember he was traded from the Kansas City Royals in the Andrew Benintendi deal for a couple of other players, or a couple other players were included in that deal as well. But Franchy Cordero was non-tendered, ends up in Baltimore on a $1.5 million deal essentially. We'll see how he performs there. They got a lot of good young talent coming. If they can get Cordero on the right track again, maybe they'll really have something. But I think this is more of an upside signing than anything else. If they get anything out of him at all, they'd be happy to have it. If not, doesn't cost them nothing. No skin off their back or skin off their teeth. If he doesn't really, break out next year with the Orioles. There's the trade of Jesse Winker and Colton Wong. I think Jesse Winker is an underrated addition here for the Brewers. He's going to play primarily against right-handers, and if he gets back to his career norms anyway, you're talking about an impact bat for a team that struggles offensively with a great pitching staff right now. barring a trade, that team should be pretty much ready to go. They like to diversify their talent, and bringing in Abraham Toro, a good young player, saves them about $10 million against the cap. But of course, Winker I think costs about $9 million, I want to say. So virtually a cap neutral deal because of Winker and Wong's contracts. Gunnar Henderson, Rookie of the Year next year. He's going to have a chance. I think the Orioles are going to keep him up there for the most part next season. But he has a really good chance to be the AL Rookie of the Year. Welcome in, Jose, by the way. Really appreciate you joining us. Got about 22 of you guys with us right now. Thank you guys very much. Really appreciate all the support. Hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps us out. Thank you guys very much. See if we can get this community over 1,000 by the beginning of the winter meetings on Sunday. Daz Cameron was originally picked up off waivers by the Baltimore Orioles a few weeks ago anyway. He has been putting on waivers and now has cleared waivers. You remember Daz Cameron is the son of outfielder Mike Cameron and entered the league with a big old hoopla anyway. Had some issues as far as signability, signed a big old contract anyway out of the draft and just never really lived up to that potential anyway with the Detroit Tigers. Ended up in the Astros system, I believe, at one point, and then now is ending up in Baltimore. So we'll see how things go. Or excuse me, he went to Houston, then Detroit, my bad. There's the Phillies adding Jake Cave. Interesting addition there. Played a lot with the Twins last year. I actually got to watch him play in the one game I went to the Rangers against the Twins last year. Not a bad player. Good bench guy, but again, injury issues. So for those of you who are Phillies fans, Brewers have outrighted their former top prospect, Alex Jackson. Seeing a lot of top prospects get deals right now. And there we are back into yesterday's headlines. But just in case you guys have missed all of the news today, living under a rock, I put out a couple of short videos already for you guys talking about the signing of Jacob DeGrom, who signed a 5-year, $185 million contract. Who would you say is the best pitcher available after DeGrom, Verlander, and Rodon? Senga. I think Senga is by far the next best option. Then you get into the next tier, which is going to be the Chris Bassett's, the Taiwan Walkers of the world, that level of starting pitcher. But Senga, I think, is the next part. In fact, I would say he's part of that top 4. So I think a team that brings in a guy like Senga, while he's not necessarily DeGrom, he is similar to him in the fact that you're expecting similar levels of production. Not that you're expecting a 4 ERA, but you're expecting probably in the low 3s, high 2s, somewhere in there for his first year in the big leagues. If you get something like that, then you're talking about an ace-level pitcher, and that's what Senga is being represented as on the open market. He is a true free agent, so he is not subject to the posting system. He is going to be able to sign with any team he likes. You're not going to have to pay his former team anything to be able to bring him in. He is 31 years old, but probably looking at a 5-year contract. That's usually what those type of deals end up being. Maybe a 5-year deal in the $15, $14 million range, maybe a little bit more after the DeGrom deal, but he should do very well in free agency. Say the Rangers bring him in, he probably slides in as your number 3 starter, maybe your number 4, depending on how John Gray bounces back after his issues, a multitude of issues that he had with the Rangers last year, health-wise. When he was healthy, though, he was very effective. Had tons of blister issues, though. Check in just to see if anything else has happened. A lot of headlines about the Mets losing Jacob DeGrom and how they are going to face them in New York on August 28th through the 30th. So if you're a Mets fan, grab some tickets. If you're a Rangers fan, they have a to-be-announced bobblehead night. You might be able to sign up and be able to get some tickets for a Jacob DeGrom bobblehead night game. I imagine that was the to-be-determined part, to-be-announced part of the promotional schedule being released. I actually bought tickets for that game because I expected it to be somebody big because they were going to spend between $60 to $75 million this offseason. So hopefully I'll get one of those bobbleheads that night. Yeah, I am a Rangers fan. I hope I get one of those bobbleheads. That'd be fantastic. I think I'm going the night they have the Martin Perez bobblehead. Going for the Marcus Semien bobblehead night. I want to get those bobbleheads. I got the Corey Seager one this past year. I didn't even open the box at the game, and they had some limited edition bobbleheads for Corey Seager. At the bottom, the base of it was gold, and they said if your entire Corey Seager was gold, or if the base was gold, stop by some section and be able to get a special prize. Well, I didn't open the box till I got home, and I opened up the box and the base was gold, and I was like, damn! But still worth it. It was a good game. Miguel Castro signs with the Arizona Diamondbacks. That looks like the only other headline so far. But thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, Zach. Yeah, Zach, a friend of mine anyway. He can speak the truth to that one. I was more than a little upset that I didn't get that. Welcome in, Stevie. The special prize was only a $5 credit at the concessions. Oh, now I don't feel so bad. I could have gotten a free drink, is what you're telling me. Okay, thank you. Welcome in, Jessica. I wonder what the big prize would have been for a total gold one would have been. But $5 credit at the concessions just for the gold base? Come on, man. Yeah, if it had been $1 million, I'd certainly be pounding the table like, no, I missed my chance. Yeah. Not exact. Beers are gotten way too expensive at ballparks. Yeah, I could have gotten like a quarter of a beer. All right, now I want to talk about one other thing for the Texas Rangers before we move on to some of the other possibilities this offseason. In case you guys haven't been around for very long anyway, one site that you can use as far as the trade market, etc., to see if your trade actually makes any sense is baseballtradevalues.com. We were hoping for a jersey or something. Yeah, that would have been more like what I was expecting. Hey, because you get the gold one, you get this Corey Seager jersey, something like that. Thank you, Jessica. Really appreciate it. But as I was saying, baseballtradevalues.com, you can check out the site. If you guys want to see what your trade will be worth, if it makes sense that the trade being offered, see if the prospects that you're offering in the deal are enough to be able to get the star player on your team, just as a kind of a resource to see whether or not you're giving equal value to both sides. Just kind of an estimating what actually it would cost. So for the purposes of this, I want to touch on the Texas Rangers now that they've got one starter in-house. I was doing a little bit of this when I was at work. Don't tell my bosses, anybody. But I just wanted to run through this just to see what it would end up costing because the Brewers were in the headlines over the last couple of days. And I wanted to see... Whoop, I don't know why they're giving me that. Go away. I don't want your ad. Okay. There's the Brewers. Now, I wanted to see what it would cost to bring in a guy at the top of the rotation. Now they've got Jacob DeGrom. Maybe they could save a little bit of money and go out there and get another number one type starter. Bring in a guy like Corbin Burns could be their next step. Now that they've got one ace in-house, they're going to have extra trade ammo that they wouldn't have had they not been able to get Jacob DeGrom, because they would have still needed Dane Dunning to fill out that rotation this next year. But now that they have DeGrom already in-house, now they've got yet another trade chip that they could send out in a package for a guy like Corbin Burns. When I was doing the math on it, things just didn't add up, and I'll show you how. Corbin Burns, Just for 2 years left of his control, he's, of course, the Cy Young Award winner. 78.3 is his median value. Say we send him to the Rangers. What exactly would it cost for the Rangers to be able to get him? Well, it's a lot. Rangers obviously are not going to top with Josh Young. He's their top overall piece. They could be convinced to trade out Carter, but of course they don't really have anybody in the outfield right now, so I don't think they're going to move him. I don't think they're going to move Leiter. I don't think they're going to move Owen White because of the injury issues. I think the first piece you can include in this trade is Dane Dunning. Because you've added Jacob DeGrom, now you can add a guy like Dane Dunning to the deal. Now they add a piece to that starting staff. Think of the Colton Wong trade that they just made. They got 2 major leaguers for one. Now they bring in 1 major leaguer in Dane Dunning. Not saying he's worth Corbin Burns, but that we can add this up. Welcome in, Charles. Welcome back. Appreciate you joining us. I got about 25 of you guys in here right now. Added a few guys. Yeah, to answer your question, or to respond to you there, Haya, the Pirates are certainly looking at Kyle Gibson. But the Rangers are certainly going to try to add 1 more significant starting pitcher. I'm hoping we get to 1,000 here within the next day or so. I want to get there before the winter meetings begin. We're really close right now. We're less than 30 subscriptions away from 1,000 subscribers. So hopefully we can get this done and be able to do this. So if you guys haven't subscribed, please do so. Thank you for the support, Charles. I appreciate it. And I can't wait to do this full time, I'll put it that way. But let's say for this trade that we're doing, Corbin Burns, we're going to put the first piece in here for the Rangers, Dane Dunning. He's available. I mentioned Ezekiel Duran. They're probably their next best tradable piece here. Let's go ahead and put him in the deal. They're not going to include Jonah Heim, their catcher, right now. They could include one of their top pitchers anyway, in Brock Porter. He has some good value as well. But the one piece I think they should add into this is Smith, which is right here. Smith didn't have quite as good of a year, doesn't have quite as good of a power bat potential as Duran. That's why his value is all the way down here at 8. So there's a few pieces right there. Look how close we are to Burns. Not close. It's still going to cost a significant bunch more than that. They would probably have to include, somebody at the top of this chart, and I just don't see that type of trade happening at this point for Corbin Burns. Now, could they go out there and get a Brandon Woodruff for that? Let's flip back over to the Brewers side of it, excuse me, and switch instead to Brandon Woodruff. Not nearly the pitcher that Burns is, but still very effective. There's another very good starting pitcher there. That is about fair value there. That's pretty similar to what you could get on the open market right now. If the Brewers were to try to trade Woodruff, that's about the deal you could get. Bringing in Dunning to take Woodruff's spot in the rotation, not a bad option. Getting the production of a Duran and a Smith possibly. More major leaguers, somebody who can move around the infield. Wong, kind of a similar player there, and Smith. Absolutely no pop though. But Duran, thank you for subscribing, Stevie. Appreciate that. Appreciate that very much. Thank you. But Duran is certainly the piece that you want from a prospect perspective there. Just the pop that he has in that bat certainly plays at the major league level. We've seen that. Just needs to find a home at the major league level. Play every single day, and he will certainly take off, I believe. And that type of a trade could work for the Rangers to bring in another high-level starting pitcher. Then you have a rotation of DeGrom, Perez, Woodruff, Gray, and then Odorizzi. And then, of course, you've traded out Dunning. You still have a ton of good young arms that you could throw in the 6 to 8 spot in your rotation, quote-unquote. Have them at the AAA level in Glenn Otto, Cole Ragans. Then, of course, they have their elite prospects still there in guys like Cole Winn, Jack Leiter, Kumar Rocker, Brock Porter, Owen White. They have a bevy of good starting pitchers on the way. They could trade some of those in a deal out there to get a controllable outfielder, add an impact reliever, go out there and add another starting pitcher, and yet they're still going to add another $30+ million in payroll. The Rangers are going to be a force this coming season. We'll see if they do enough to be able to get into the postseason. I think right now they're absolutely in wildcard contention just with the addition of Jacob DeGrom and leaving the team as is. Will they win the wild card as currently constructed? I think they'll be right on the precipice of it just because they've improved their rotation significantly with DeGrom bringing back Perez and adding a good innings eater type in Jake Odorizzi at the back end. And of course, bringing in Bruce Bochy as your manager and Mike Maddox is going to do wonders for that organization. And again, as far as if you guys have missed it, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you guys have missed the headline today, Jacob DeGrom signs the 5-year, $185 million contract to go to the Texas Rangers and leave the Mets just kind of with their jaw agape. I mean, all the New York Mets fans right now are losing their minds on Twitter, and I can understandably see why. I mean, he was their guy. He was their guy before Max Scherzer, and they lose him. They were told their owner, Steve Cohen, was an owner that was willing to go anywhere, anytime, to be able to sign any player, go out there and spend any dollar that was needed to be able to make this team a winner. And here they lose their number one starter a year after spending $43.5 million to bring in Max Scherzer, spending a ton of money on Marte and Canna, dropping $102 million this offseason on Edwin Diaz, and yet you weren't willing to go out there and get a guy like Jacob DeGrom and be able to go more than 3 years and $120 million. That's just not getting it done. I'm sure the Mets fan base will have something to say about it. Yes, Robert, I do use Spotrac quite a bit. It's very helpful as far as contracts. They've actually improved with their machines anyway, as far as tinkering with rosters just to kind of see how things would work financially. They still need to improve this function of it that I'm showing right here for baseballtradevalues.com. Just kind of show the value of the player overall, not just the contract value. But I do like Spotrac for any one of the 4 major sports out there. Let's go ahead and clear this off for you guys. I do want to show the Rangers as another trade possibility, but this time for an outfielder. The Cardinals are said to have an outfielder available this offseason, whether it be Nootbaar or O'Neill. I think they'd be more willing to trade O'Neill. But just looking at their team right now, say you're willing to trade a guy like O'Neill here, 24 value, to the Rangers, wouldn't exactly cost you premium prospects if you're the Rangers. And so that would solve your corner outfield spot if you don't bring in a guy like Mitch Haniger. So keep your eyes out on possible trade there between the Rangers and Cardinals. Very few trades have happened in the recent history between the Rangers and Cardinals, both of which have worked out in the Rangers' favor. The Patrick Wisdom trade a couple years ago. Ultimately, he's now in the Chicago Cubs. He's had a little bit of a resurgent year with the Cubs. And then, of course, most notably, the Adolis Garcia waiver claim, anyway, that they got off of the Cardinals. Nobody thought Adolis was going to take off when he did, and he certainly has earned his way on to the roster for the Rangers and is their everyday right fielder at this point. But maybe we could see another connection here between the Rangers and Cardinals. Let's go ahead and clear it off one more time. You guys let me know. What do you think the Rangers should do next now that they've gotten their man, now that they've brought in Jacob DeGrom? If I'm the Rangers, I turn around and immediately go to Verlander, Rodon, and Senga. I would immediately go to any one of those free agents and say, hey, we got Jacob DeGrom. We got Corey Seager. We got Marcus Semien. We're adding pieces. We have another $30+ million earmarked for you if you want to be the number 2 in this rotation out of a very good rotation. Say they bring in one of those pieces. Let's just say for argument that they bring in Carlos Rodon on a 6-year deal worth, $150 million. That's a fantastic deal for Carlos Rodon. That's roughly $30 million. They would still have a little bit of money left over to spend on a left fielder, on a closer, wherever they want to spend it. But say their rotation ends up with DeGrom, Rodon, Perez, Gray, and Odorizzi. That's a fantastic starting rotation. They should be right up there with the wild card contenders. In fact, if they get Rodon after getting DeGrom, I would argue to say they are a wild card favorite at that point, and that's without addressing left field at all or their closer situation, which they will, by the way, at some point. But they absolutely need to add a closer. I think they're the back end of that bullpen, now that you've got a legitimate rotation now, even without bringing in another starter, you have a legitimate rotation with DeGrom at the head of it, followed by Perez and Gray. Even if they don't bring Rodon or Senga or any other starter, they still have a very good staff. They need to give them something at the back end of that bullpen. They have a number of guys who've closed in the past for the Rangers, Leclerc, Barlow, etc., but they need to get that one shutdown guy. I'm not sure he's out there on the free agent market. Kenley Jansen, Taylor Rogers, probably the 2 best free agents out there. But if you can go out there to the Pirates and get Bednar, or to the Guardians and get your former prospect in Emmanuel Clase, not saying either one of those would happen, but that level of closer at the back end of that bullpen, slam the door shut on teams that are trying to come back on you late after not being able to go or to get a hit against your starting pitching, and then finally your bullpen gives it up. That's the worst thing that can happen. You think Tyone to the Rangers would be a good fit? I'm not a big fan of Tyone. I thought he was a good prospect with the with the Pirates anyway. It was really a big fan of his at that point, but the injuries just seem to keep mounting for him. Pitched well for the Yankees of the past couple of years. He's going to probably get in the neighborhood of 4 years, $16 million, similar to what John Gray got last year from the Rangers. I just don't think he's a perfect fit for the Rangers. Um, I think he's a better fit for a team like the Orioles, maybe even the Red Sox as a number 2, 3 type starter. Think of Nate Eovaldi type locations anyway for him. By the way, Nate Eovaldi's market might come to a conclusion tomorrow. We'll see if that ends up happening. We were told by the Boston media anyway that one of Strom or Eovaldi would sign before the winter meetings. It would be great if they get Rodon with DeGrom if he stays healthy. Absolutely. Rodon showed last year that he was able to stay healthy through 162 games, and that was the reason why he took the 1 year plus an option to show that his arm could hold up for an entire season. He was fantastic, pitched to a 2.8 ERA, pitcher-friendly ballpark, of course, going to San Francisco, but the Rangers aren't exactly a home run hitting ballpark anymore. There's no longer the jet stream for hitters to be able to launch home runs easily out into right center field. Those days are gone. The Rangers ballpark is now a pitcher-friendly ballpark, and so bringing in starting pitching really should help the Rangers with wins. Just bringing in Jacob DeGrom probably adds another 7, 8 wins to the Rangers if he's healthy, maybe even 9 at this point, just because of what type of starter he's replacing in that line or in that starting staff. That's how big of an impact Jacob DeGrom is going to have when healthy. He is an absolute ace, the best pitcher in Major League Baseball when healthy. So just right there, you're probably talking about a mid-80 win team right now. Just with the addition of Jacob DeGrom, they're right on the outside of the wild card picture, I believe. If they bring in anybody else, a left fielder, a closer, another starter, DH, which they could use as well, they could be one of the favorites for a wild card by the end of this offseason. I mean, the Mariners are certainly making their case to be a contender for a wild card, maybe even a contender for the division. If the Rangers add a Rodon, they could arguably have the best rotation in the division and one of the best rotations in the game. The Astros, of course, had the best rotation last year, but they're going to lose Justin Verlander. That means they're still going to have to go with the likes of Valdez, which is fantastic. Javier has been fantastic, but they're still going to have Lance McCullers. We saw he can kind of be up and down, but usually he's very good. They have Jose Urquidy as well. I know I'm missing one other starter out of that lineup anyway, but they have a good young team going forward. I think the Astros rotation will miss Justin Verlander next year. He was kind of the one veteran on that team that kind of shepherded that rotation along, took a lot of pressure off of those young guys, and we'll see if the formula is working for the Astros or not. How good can Josh Young be? I'm not sure if he still holds his rookie status. I'm not sure if he does. If he does, I think he's another candidate for Rookie of the Year because he's going to probably hit in that 5, maybe 4, 5, 6 spot in the lineup right now, depending on what you do the rest of this offseason. But you're talking about he's going to drive in a ton of runs. He's going to hit his home runs as well. He's going to hit for a high average, and I'd expect a big year for Josh Young. Rotation DeGrom, Perez, Gray, Odorizzi, maybe Rodon, yeah. Catcher Heim, first base, Lowe, second Simeon, third base, Young, yeah. Shortstop Seager, left field, I'd put a question mark right now. I don't think Thompson's going to be your starter opening day. They're going to bring in somebody. Center field Tavares, right fielder Garcia, and DH as it stands right now, Matthias. I think for DH you can pencil in Garver right now or Huff, because I think they're going to have Garver as their designated hitter next year to lead off the year anyway. Remember, he left during the season, battled through some injuries to play against his former team, the Minnesota Twins, and then immediately after that series was over, went onto the injured list, was out for the year due to injury, and when healthy, he is an impact bat. But of course, another issue is when he's healthy. But I think Rodon is probably the most gettable starting pitcher on the market right now. I think the Giants are waiting for the Aaron Judge news. I think the Senga is another starting pitcher that could be very gettable. But again, you're going to have very similar offers from probably 5 or 6 teams. Is a team really willing to go out there and get to $18 million for a Senga. I don't think they're willing to do that, but maybe incentives in the back end of that deal we could see as well. Welcome back, Bush Girl. Saw you at the beginning of our video. Welcome back. Saw your comment as well on our video for DeGrom. Really appreciate it. Thank you. If you guys are new here to the Upside, make sure you say hello in the chat. Drop us a like. Hit that subscribe button. We're getting very close. Very, very, very close to 1,000 subscribers. I really want to see if we can get there before the winter meetings begin on Sunday. So we are, 26 people away right now. I just saw we gained another subscriber. Thank you to whoever hit that subscribe button. We are very close. If you haven't hit that subscribe button right now, please hit that button. We'd really appreciate it. Thank you very much. But just to kind of wrap up the Rangers side of this argument anyway, the Rangers have a lot of options as far as what they can do for another starting pitcher, and we'll see where they end up going. But I think they could be in there for Senga. I think they could be in there for Rodon. I'm not sure where they end up going, though, as outside of those two. If they don't get one of those two starters, I think they could look to the trade market, maybe dealing out a guy like Duran, bringing in Haniger in free agency to solve their left field spot, and then using a low-cost starting pitcher in a trade, something like a Pablo Lopez type, to be able to get that deal done. Imagine Judge and Bell on the same team. Well, that's kind of similar to talking about Juan Soto and Josh Bell. I mean, we saw that last year with the trade from the Nationals to the Padres. But Bell needs to have a little bit better second half than he did last year anyway. Was a 300 hitter before the trade, or he was underneath 200 after the trade. Not sure that San Diego really worked out for him, so I don't think there's a reunion coming there. But what do you guys think the Rangers should do there? What if they go after a Rodon or a Senga and come up empty, and they bring in Mitch Haniger to solve their left field spot? What options would you go for a starting pitcher? Who would you trade for? Shane Bieber of the Guardians, Pablo Lopez of the Marlins, Marco Gonzalez, Chris Flexen of the Mariners. There's a lot of options out there right now. But yeah, part of it could be with a new problem, or being with a new team could be part of that problem anyway for Bell. But there was a lot of pressure on that entire team, especially after Fernando Tatis Jr. was busted for PEDs. Just the headlines were, hey, this team is ready to win the World Series. And then the next breath, PEDs, Fernando Tatis Jr. out for the year. That immediately turns to the conversation of, hey, what are you guys going to do to make yourselves play even better? Thank you guys for subscribing. I just saw we gained another one. Down to 25. 25 away from 1,000. Thank you guys. Really appreciate that. But part of that could have been Josh Bell playing with his new team. Maybe it just didn't really work for him there in San Diego. All the pressure being on him and Juan Soto to kind of save the team after Fernando Tatis Jr. was busted for PEDs. Which, again, I think is part of the reason why Fernando Tatis Jr. is, again, available for trade if you are able to talk to A.J. Preller and convince him with an overwhelming offer. Do you think Senga is a bit of a gamble? I think any pitcher is a bit of a gamble. I mean, if we're talking about Justin Verlander, he's a bit of a gamble because he's 39. That's the same with any free agent, though. I think Senga is about as good of a surefire thing out of NPB that we've seen. Shohei Ohtani was probably the other one that I would say as far as surefire lock to be a good productive player in Major League Baseball. Yu Darvish to the same extent. I think you're looking at very similar types of players as far as Yu Darvish and Senga. So for the Rangers team that really enjoyed having Yu Darvish, if they're able to convince him that's a lower cost than a Verlander or a Rodon would be, then you still have money to bring in Haniger, and then you could trade for a closer. A lot of different ways the Rangers could go about it now that they've brought in the ace of their staff in Jacob DeGrom. I'd love to see the Jays pick up another good starter after Gausman and Manoah. They have Barrios, who struggled last year. They've got some good starting options there, but I'm with you. They could use a fifth starter. They also have what was his name? He was injured at the end of the year. Former Dodger, international player, signed 4 years, $80 million. I can see his face. Ryu. Hyunjin Ryu. He's going to be in that staff next year. But I think you'd have a much better rotation if you go for like what the Chicago White Sox did, a Mike Clevenger type, somebody with really high upside at the back end of that staff. Bringing in a guy like Senga certainly fills that spot, and I think that would be perfect thing for the Toronto Blue Jays. They of course have Mitch White, who came over from the Dodgers. Shocked they let him go. I followed his career from probably the single A level with the Dodgers anyway. I just noticed his strikeout rate was off the charts anyway in minor league ball. Looked like he was starting to find his footing there in LA, and then they wiped it out from underneath him with the trade to Toronto. Now that he's going to have a full offseason to be on the Toronto pitching staff, etc., I think he'll be back to his career norms and might take off this year. If they don't bring in a starter, they might put him in as their number 5 starter. If they do bring in a starter, maybe somebody who does get injured, because there will inevitably be an injury, maybe they bring in Mike White as the 6th starter, if you will, and he takes off from there. But I'm really high on Mitch White, and I think he's going to do wonders in Toronto. Toronto's going to have a busy offseason. I think they're going to bring in a starter. I think they're going to add at least one outfielder. They're probably going to trade a catcher. It sounds like Danny Jansen. I would have traded Alejandro Kirk, though. I think he's destined for a designated hitter role, and you're going to have that spot available for Vladdy Jr. at some point. And just having Kirk on the roster, kind of another redundancy I think they could have avoided. But again, Danny Jansen's the likely catcher out there. Catching market, of course, picking up with Sean Murphy. We'll see if he gets traded from the A's anyway at the winter meetings. Aaron Judge looks to be signing here in the next few days. We could see a Justin Verlander signing now that we've had DeGrom go off the board. The starting pitcher market is going to move very quickly now with DeGrom going off the board. The market's going to kind of autocorrect itself overnight. Everybody digests the news. 5 years, $185 million for DeGrom with a conditional 6th year to bring it to $222. Great deal for the Rangers, great deal for DeGrom if he stays healthy. It actually looks like a bargain for the Rangers if he stays healthy. But we'll see where Verlander ends up going. If I had to pick right now, I would still probably say the Dodgers, but the Mets are going to be right there. If I still had to pick a team right now for Rodon, at this point, I think the Mets have to get him. And so I'm going to put him on the Mets. Do I think they'll end up getting him? That's another question entirely. As for the rest of their rotation, they have Bassett and Walker as far as pieces that they need to figure out at the back end of in the middle of their rotation as well. Maybe they bring back Bassett as their number 2 if they're unable to sign any of these starters. Maybe they bring in Senga and say, hey, this is the guy that replaces DeGrom. But they've got a lot of issues that they need to solve there in New York. Losing Jacob DeGrom, not exactly the right way to start things off for your offseason. Things look great by their ability to keep Edwin Diaz, but I think that was more about Diaz wanting to be in New York more than anything else. They just went ahead and signed him for essentially what the market was looking like for him to sign with at the beginning of the offseason, 5 years, $102 million. And instead of waiting until the winter meetings to sign, where he might have gotten an extra $20 million total, maybe an extra year out of it, he still signs the biggest contract for a reliever in Major League history, struck out over 50% of batters last year, absolutely incredible season, but I think he was a little bit more New York-based of a free agent than anybody else on the market right now for the Mets. DeGrom was thought to be their guy, sounded like they had really thought he was coming back. They kept putting it out there in the meeting, or in the media anyway, that they really were high on their chances. But if you paid attention at the early outset of the offseason, John Heyman and Joel Sherman of the New York Post, when they were speaking with ownership level, or with the ownership level and the front office level of the New York Mets staff, they didn't feel quite so optimistic. So I don't know why they were saying so over the last week and a half, 2 weeks, to another New York Post reporter in Mike Puma, and tells me they were trying to play things up. Hey, we're really in there for DeGrom. We don't want to go past 3 years, is what it ultimately ended up sounding like. And that's what ended up costing him. So DeGrom goes to Texas, gets that fully guaranteed 5-year deal with an option. So we'll see how things work out in Texas. But Mets have a mess to clean up on their hands yet again. And we'll see if they can do it. They have the money to do it, and I expect it to happen. If Judge ends up signing with the Dodgers, what would you think about Betts playing second base? I think that's where he wants to play anyway. It seems like reports are coming out more and more often that Betts, whether or not Aaron Judge comes there, is more than willing to move to second base. It sounds like he actually wants to move there next year anyway. Maybe he's just tired of the wear and tear on his body playing the outfield, something like that. But second base isn't exactly a slouch of a defensive position either. And who knows? Maybe he moves to second base, even if Judge doesn't go there. But Mookie Betts has done it in the past anyway. He's played in the minor leagues, he came up in the Red Sox system as a middle infielder and an outfielder. By the way, that was second base, in case you're wondering what the middle infield spot was. And we'll see where he ends up playing next season. But Dodgers, if they get a player like Aaron Judge in there, they trimmed $100 million off their payroll from last year, so they certainly have the money to do it. I'm just curious if they're willing to put all that money in there for Judge, go out there and still add a shortstop, or go the Willie Adames route and trade, and then add a guy like Verlander to that staff. They could do all three. Don't get me wrong. They could add Bogarts. They could add a Verlander and a Judge, but I don't think they're going to be able to add all three. I think the market is just too rich with teams willing to spend money this offseason. I don't think the Dodgers are going to be outspending anybody by the margins that they usually do. And the Dodgers, I think, will get some of those top free agents. I just don't think they're going to be able to fill all three of them with A-list free agents this time around. Let me just check and see if we've gotten any new headlines. Looks like the Miami Marlins are actually contacting catchers on the market as well. Sounds like they're underwhelmed with Jacob Stallings after acquiring him from the Pirates last offseason. They've at least checked in on Wilson Contreras, according to John Heyman. There's been a lot of talk about Salvador Perez being available. I'm not sure how much truth there is to that. It sounds like he wants to stay in Kansas City, and it sounds like Kansas City wants to keep him. To me, this sounds a lot like the Brian Reynolds situation in Pittsburgh, except Sal Perez has played his entire career in Kansas City, won a championship there. Reynolds hasn't necessarily done that with Pittsburgh, and so I think they just want to keep him as a career Royal. And for those of you wondering if Sal Perez could be on the Chicago White Sox, saw that in a mention out there earlier today. But if you think he's going to go there, I think you're wasting your time. You met Stallings? That's cool. Hold on, getting some notifications. Let me see if anything's happening. Pardon me for just a moment there. Let's see what it says. They could move Melendez. Yeah, that's what we were just seeing on there. Nope, it's just more Rangers news. My bad. But yeah, the Rangers do end up with DeGrom, 5 years, $185 million. Welcome back, Ethan. You think Rodon to the Texas Rangers? I'm thinking that's a possibility at this point. I'm halfway wondering if they might even get it done before the winter meetings, because they had all their press releases already ready to go tonight when they got it all done. Tells me they know what they're doing behind the scenes. Bochy is going to have a fantastic rotation next year, and maybe they do go out there and spend on Rodon and then trade for whatever else they need, or maybe even spend even more and get Mitch Haniger. How deep are the pocketbooks of the Rangers? We're about to find out. I do want to check out this one from the Phillies because it sounds like maybe we could be seeing a tide turn here for Turner. Sounds more like due diligence, though. The Phillies have been connected with all four top free agent shortstops on the market right now. That's going to be Carlos Correa, Trey Turner, Dansby Swanson, and Xander Bogaerts. Just like I think the notifications that the Padres are talking to Xander Bogaerts and Trey Turner to kind of drive up the price, possibly be another team in the mix for both of those players. I'm not sure they ultimately end up with either of those players. Trey Turner is going to be a fantastic fit, I think, in Philadelphia. Here's an article essentially saying that the Philadelphia Phillies are looking at all the other free agents, shortstops on the market right now, thinking that, maybe if they put out some notifications in the media that they're willing to go another direction than Trey Turner, that's their way of keeping the price down a little bit on Trey Turner, saying, hey, even though you're a great shortstop, we have these other great shortstops that we can turn to as well if your price gets too high. some negotiating through the media, I think, is what we're starting to see in the Trey Turner talks. Ray Davis is super rich. I mean, he did win him in a bankruptcy auction, and is willing to spend money. I think he's done with the days of rebuilding. He's ready to go, and they've got a lot of prospects that aren't necessarily on the roster right now, but they've got some cheap options in center with Tavares, another cheap option in Adolis Garcia in right. They got some cheap options at first base in Nathaniel Lowe, third base another cheap one in Josh Young. Catchers locked up another cheap option in Jonah Heim anyway. And then, of course, they could have another cheap option at designated hitter in Sam Huff. And they have some money to spend. They could add another piece to that rotation. Again, another left fielder, closer. I am curious what they're going to do at the back end of that bullpen. I don't really like any of the options on the free agent market, so I wonder if they end up trading for a closer. Which makes me wonder, actually. Let me pull this up for you guys. Again, baseballtradevalues.com. I just want to see what the value of a guy like Bednar is for the Pirates anyway. And if you guys have been reading anything from Jim Bowden of MLB.com, he basically views Bednar as one of the most valuable pieces in all of baseball right now. Again, it's a reliever though. How valuable can he really be? We're about to find out. Trade for Burns or Bieber. I don't think they have the pieces to be able to get a Burns. We did that trade earlier in the video here. You can check that out. Probably about half an hour ago if you want to check back into the live. Just the pieces it would cost to bring him in would, I think, be a little bit too prohibitive to be able to get it done. They want to hang on to their top echelon of prospects, and I think they're going to be precluded from being able to get a guy like Corbin Burns. Now, a guy like Brandon Woodruff, a lot more gettable. That's a guy more in the Rangers' price range as far as prospect capital. We'll see if something like that ends up happening. But let's just see what it would end up costing. There's Bednar's contract right there. 4 years of control. 21 is his average value. If you send over a couple of top prospects over to the Padres, or excuse me, to the Pirates, I think you could possibly pry away a Bednar. But maybe they go the cheap route and go for a closer that way. But really appreciate you guys joining us tonight. We're over the 10 o'clock hour. I do work early in the morning, so I'll probably call it here in just a little bit. But we've gained quite a few guys to our community over the past hour and a half or so. Thank you guys for subscribing very much. We are very, 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 very close to hitting 1,000 subscribers. If you're watching this on playback after this live is over, we would really like to invite you guys to join our community. We cover the NBA, MLB, NFL, and the NHL. And would really appreciate you guys if you guys would subscribe. For those of you who have already subscribed, thank you guys very much. You've made this past year a lot of fun. Welcome in, Drake. Could you see Verlander heading west to a team like the Giants or Mariners? Mariners, absolutely not. Giants, very possible, but I think the Dodgers are still the favorite there, and I think the Mets are going to have something to say about it. But as far as I'm concerned, Verlander's going to do very well in free agency. I think he was going to do well in free agency even before the trade, or excuse me, the signing of Jacob DeGrom to Texas for 5 years, $185 million. Average annual value of only $37 million. First year is only $30 million for Jacob DeGrom as well. Rangers could spend quite a bit more this offseason, so we'll see which way they end up going. But things look fantastic right now if you're a Rangers fan. Right now, it's DEFCON 1 if you're a Mets fan. You have to address that starting staff. You brought in Max Scherzer last year. You were told your owner was going to go out there and spend money. No free agent was going to turn you down because of money, and here you are, 1 year later, after signing Max Scherzer, you top out your offer at 3 years, $120 million. You don't even go out there for a fourth year, let alone a fifth, which is what it ultimately ended up taking for the Rangers to be able to get him onto their staff. And great job by the Rangers to be able to get it done. If Rangers traded Josh Young, they could sign Carlos Correa and play third or Turner. Not going to happen. Josh Young is too big of a prospect for them. I think he's their future. And bringing in Carlos Correa or a Turner, while very expensive, I think they pretty much solved their third base role now. I told you guys last offseason they could be, in the market for a guy like Trey Turner. Fits exactly what they're looking for. Contact hitter, all those types of things. Speed, power, all those things that he brings. But maybe it's just a little bit too expensive right now, especially given their other needs. Maybe they bring in Turner to play left field. That's the only way I see that type of thing happening. But you're not trading Young to be able to do it. But I would still predict Verlander to the Dodgers. Right there with you, Robert. Verlander to the Dodgers is what I think will ultimately end up happening. But thank you guys for joining us. Really appreciate all the support we've gained. A lot of new subscribers tonight. Thank you guys. And if you guys are new to the Upside, thank you guys for joining us. If you've been around for a while, thank you guys for making the last year a lot of fun. Getting very close to being monetized and being able to do this full time for you guys. And would really like to be able to do that for you. We're less than 25 subscribers away now. Would really like to get there before the winter meetings begin on Sunday. We will be live for you guys on Sunday, 6 p.m. Make sure you guys join us for the winter meetings. Hall of Fame era and ballot announcements will be at 7 o'clock Central Time. We'll be live for that as well. We'll probably be from 6 to 11 p.m. live for you guys. And remember, the winter meetings are in San Diego, so we're going to see a lot of late night headlines coming out. A lot of early mornings are not going to have those big headlines this year at least. So make sure you get your or sleep in anyway. But remember, keep your notifications on. We'll keep you guys updated as much as possible. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter at UpsideSN. Again, follow us here. Subscribe to us on YouTube, Upside Sports Network, and follow us on Twitter at UpsideSN. Mark, I saw you did subscribe to us or follow us on Twitter. Thank you guys for subscribing out there as well. Really appreciate all the support. We'll go ahead and wrap it up for the evening anyway. But again, the big news of the day, Jacob DeGrom, 5 years, $185 million to the Texas Rangers. Rangers still have a boatload of money to spend this offseason. The Mets, what are they going to do to counter this move? How are they going to fill this, the void in that starting staff of Jacob DeGrom? And what a start to this offseason we've already had. The winter meetings aren't even here yet, and we already have two of the top free agents off the board in Diaz and DeGrom. Fantastic start. Again, we do expect Aaron Judge to sign at the winter meetings. Verlander could go very quickly here in the next 24, 48, 72 hours, somewhere in there. We could see even a guy like Carlos Rodon go by Tuesday, but we're getting very close. Does the 1,000 subscriber get a bobblehead with a gold bottom on it? No. I'll put it this way. I got to keep my Corey Seager bobblehead. Sorry. Love that bobblehead. But really appreciate you guys for subscribing and joining us. And we'll see you guys tomorrow. Again, we will have a live for you guys tomorrow night. So we will try to do a basketball or hockey game. Just to kind of keep our minds refreshed anyway. We're not going to get a lot of baseball news tomorrow evening. We might get a lot of baseball news early in the day. But again, traveled over to San Diego or to the San Diego area for the winter meetings. We'll begin tomorrow night and then early Sunday morning. So don't expect a lot of headlines in the evening hours anyway, but pay attention in the morning. We could see another big signing like a Justin Verlander or Rodon now that we've seen the dam break anyway, with DeGrom going to the Rangers. Again, 5 years, $185 million with a 6-year option, $37 million average annual value. Great deal for both team and player. If he stays healthy, this is an absolute bargain for the Texas Rangers. Best pitcher in all of baseball when he's healthy. The question, of course, will he stay healthy? But thank you guys for joining us. Let us know in the comments of any one of our videos. If you have any questions, send it to us on one of our videos. We try to respond to every single one of those comments we get. Really appreciate you guys. And again, if you're just joining us, hit that subscribe button. We're so close to 1,000 subscribers. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. And again, we'll see you guys tomorrow evening for the basketball or hockey game. Let us know which game you want us to do, and we'll try to do it. Hopefully it'll be around the 8, 9 o'clock. So send us your suggestions, and we'll try to do the game you guys suggest. But we'll see you guys tomorrow night.